Have you ever heard a wildcrafting tip that just didn't sound right, or been following some common wildcrafting advice that just turned out not to be true? Well, in today's show, we're going to be debunking some of the most common wildcrafting myths that are still out there. And believe me, these are going to help you forage more safely and more knowledgeably. Myth number one: if you see an animal eat it, that means you can eat it too. This is a very dangerous myth to be sharing around, but it seems logical, right? Who knows the environment better than the animals that live in it? But the fact of the matter is, other animals have very different physiologies than us humans, and so they can eat very different things. For example, deer and squirrels have been known to eat mushrooms that are toxic to humans. And some bird species happily gorge on berries that are toxic to humans. So always rely on proper identification of anything you're eating. Don't rely on an animal to show you what is safe to eat and what's not safe to eat. Myth number two: all red berries are poisonous berries. Now let's talk about this weird myth that I've heard actually from a few students, that all berries that are red in color are toxic to humans. It's true that there are some species of berry that are toxic to humans that are also red. There's obviously plenty of red berries that are really delicious for humans to eat too, like this one last hanging on huckleberry here, and wild strawberries are red. Some examples of berries that are toxic that are also red include holly and baneberry. So really, again, it all comes down to proper identification and just knowing the difference between the different types of berries. But to just put a blanket statement out there like that all red berries are toxic, even as just a general rule for the layperson, I feel like is really overkill. Myth number three: over-harvesting in the wild isn't really a concern for just the individual forager. That's more just for commercial operations, right? The plants can bounce back. Oh, that is just not true. One individual has tons of power to negatively impact plant populations, especially if you're foraging in sensitive areas or harvesting plants that are very slow growing. You can do a lot of damage very quickly. So to be a responsible forager, always use the rule of thirds. Never take more than 1/3 of a plant population, and sometimes that's even too much. Really, just take what you're going to use and allow the plants to regenerate. Well, hey, real quick, before we get to myth number four, I just wanted to let you know that if you're into wild foraging, mushrooms, permaculture, perennial plants, or anything in between, I'm working on a lot of content that might interest you. So don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on your notifications so you don't miss out. Myth number four: foraging is always free and no rules apply. So this is maybe less of a myth and more of a mindset that I've noticed from quite a few people I've met while foraging. While foraging is a great way to get outside and get your own food, you can't just go out and forage wherever you want. In some areas, foraging is regulated, especially on public lands like national parks and protected areas. There's often limits on what and how much you can take to protect the local ecosystems. So before going out, make sure you know the local laws and regulations of the areas you're going to, and if you're going on private land, you better get permission. Ethical foraging isn't just about what you take, it's about how you interact with the land and the community. Our final myth, myth number five: you don't need to clean your wild edibles. Well, how does that make sense? Wild plants are exposed to insects and animal waste just like cultivated plants. So you always want to wash what you forage thoroughly, and you need to be aware that some plants need to be cooked or processed in some way to make them edible. So that's up to you to be knowledgeable about. Hey, if you've heard of other wildcrafting myths or have questions, drop them in the comments below. But there you have it, 5 wildcrafting myths debunked.